Would you like to be a working actor long term? Well, I don't think there's one way to do that, but I think one thing we can do is listen to people who have actually done it and who are continuing to do it. In this case, it would be my friend Garret Dillahunt.
Nothing. We don't want anything. We'll leave. We're leaving.
We spoke earlier about our time together when we were both series regulars on Raising Hope. We had a fantastic time with that. So we sent out a video on YouTube earlier where we talked about that portion of his career, but he's had an amazing career. Coming into this business with no connections, overcoming personal tragedy, but finding his own way from a small town to really hitting it in the big time, a consistently working actor and highly respected as well. He's been a series regular on over 10 television shows, which is incredible, but he's also played really significant roles in many major motion pictures, 3 of which have been nominated for Best Picture. Those include No Country for Old Men, Winter's Bone, and 12 Years a Slave. A lot of you have asked for this, so here it is, the rest of the interview. He's a great guy and a very respected actor. Please welcome Garret Dillahunt.
Happy to be
here. I always like to start at the beginning with people, and so you were born in Washington, is that right?
No, I was born in California, in the Bay Area. My father's a trucker.
When you were growing up, who had like a big influence on who you later became?
Well, I had a great teacher. I went to public school.
Mm-hmm.
I had a great education, actually, from a small town in Washington. But there was one teacher there named Barry Grimes, who was my English teacher, a writing teacher, who I'm still friends with to this day. It's really weird to call him Barry.
Wow.
You want to call him Mr. Grimes or whatever the whole time. But, just the one person who, someone outside of your family who believes in you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's an important moment.
Yeah. What did he say? Do you remember anything in particular that he said?
He just acknowledged some good work. And I was really young on the paper, and I wrote a really good story, and he just sort of called me out, and it was a feeling I enjoyed.
Wow. That
someone I respected, I wanted to please. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's a good quality to. It's like working with friends. Like if we work with Gregg, it's like we don't want to let him down.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a big motivator, and it's a great way to, I think, shape a career. Kind of finding those experiences that make you feel that way.
But obviously, at some point you decided to go into acting. Did you have other interests prior to that, sports or arts, or was it just the newspaper?
I wanted to be a cartoonist for Disney at one point. I sent them some cartoons, and I knew I wanted to do something that wasn't a desk job. I don't know that I ever would have become an actor if not for, and this is the point of these interviews that I always feel like, oh, this is going to bring the mood down. But I don't mean it to. This was a long time ago. Yeah. But I had an older brother. In my senior year of high school, he died in a drunk driving accident.
Yeah.
Which, we're just a normal little, lower middle class family, wearing hand-me-downs, and something like that happens to you, and you just, we've all experienced tragedy of some sort, or just a little nudge just sends you way off your planned trajectory.
Yeah.
So I went to school and majored in journalism because that was the plan. But my heart wasn't in it, and I was really a surly, terrible roommate, and got in lots of fights and was very angry. And I found acting, and it turns out, I'm sure it was very therapeutic for me, and I just wanted to be somebody else, and so I could be all these people, and someone smarter than me would tell me great things to say, and I didn't have to think of them, and I didn't have to be me, and I just threw myself into it. And so I just crashed the auditions in San Francisco. And whoever would see me, I auditioned for. And one of the schools that saw me was NYU. And so I ended up choosing them because I'd never been east of Montana. That was my logic.
Wow.
Like, that sounds good. And they had and they let me be the janitor assistant. So I got tuition and a little stipend. I've always been very motivated by being, the son of a trucker and from a small town, and feeling dismissed a lot, and I've always had a chip on my shoulder about that, and I remember often I kind of miss it, that fire, because I would be like, I'm I'm going to do it anyway.
So you did a lot of theater, though, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you feel that really developed you as an actor?
It seems to me, and still does, a lot of the casting directors I know have told me this, and I don't know if they have you, that they love the British actors because a lot of them come from the theater and they're prepared.
Yeah.
Just second nature, comfortable with language, and they know their shit, and it's expected. And I think there is something about theater training that promotes that. I don't think everybody needs to go to a conservatory program. I think a lot of people have a technique that's working for them. And some of my friends who didn't train, like Philip Hoffman, he went to undergrad at NYU, but he got me my manager. But my point in bringing him up was just that he's someone that formed his own opinions and broke from school right away.
For sure. Spectacular.
So I don't think you have to do that, is my point.
I see, yeah. But at some point you got your first gig, One Life to Live, or one of your first recurring gigs.
On TV,
right?
you mean?
Yeah, on TV.
Yeah, I was starving, and I was walking down the street, and I ran into a friend of mine, and he was like, "Oh, man, I saw you in the Times. You're doing so good." And I remember just sort of hearing him, but then thinking, like, I'm doing good? I'm so hungry, I didn't, and I just thought, I've got to change something here. I need to make a living. We deserve to make a living.
For sure, yeah.
And so, yeah, then I started trying to do film and television stuff. I'm no Robert Redford, but there's a place for me.
Yeah.
There's a place for me.
No doubt. And eventually your first pilot or you booked was at Maximum Bob?
Yeah, I got like 3 pilots. Because I had nothing to lose. And they would tell you right away if it's not going or not, you can go get another one.
Yeah.
And Maximum Bob was one of the 3 that went. All I wanted, and I wish I could have held on to this because it was the key to great auditions for me. It was this is exactly what I want. I'm the star of the show, in front of powerful people, and I've been cast in this part, and I get to play it for
right here.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like this is the gig.
I think so much about the class is it's acting lessons, but also how you can apply acting lessons to your life. And I love the mindset. I think the mindset is so important for us. And you had that mindset of this is my time. For 10 minutes, I'm the star.
This is all I can hope for in this moment, and that's a success.
Yeah.
And then move on.
Right.
I think, though, what you've done is something that's really underestimated in its importance, and that's have a family, have a life outside of this, perhaps other interests. I have no. I keep telling my wife I need a hobby. A downside of being a workaholic is you don't really know what else to do. Then you need to fill it with things.
Yeah,
and have those experiences and those traumas, and I think everything is food.
For sure, yeah. You talked about Michelle, your wife. Did you meet her on leap years, or did you already know her?
No, we did a play together, Circle Rep. My wife is my wife's name is Michelle Hurd. She's been an actor a long time, longer than I am. Her father was a Jamaican actor named Hugh Hurd. I don't know if he did a lot of Cassavetes movies back in the day. So Michelle is this sort of mind-numbingly beautiful, and she came roller skating. She was on rollerblades at the time, hot in New York City. So she's in like, tiny little hot pants and like a crop top, and she's coming in all abs and like glistening. And she's like, hey, I'm Michelle. I'm playing Palace, and we have this love interest thing. And she tells it like that. I was like, nice to meet you, and turned away. She was so beautiful, and I was wearing like these corduroy pants. I was like, why am I wearing these stupid pants? And I got like these, I was really into like showing my socks at the time, like white socks and black shoes. I thought that was a cool statement. I was like, this is the stupidest shoes you could have worn. And I was just so tongue-tied around, and that was 1996. We've been together ever since.
Do you feel as though you've changed your craft over the years?
All I can do is my best. You really got to do a number on yourself to stay sane.
Yeah.
But I also believe that there's no rejection. That's a word we hear thrown around a lot in this business. Like, you got to get a thick skin and get used to rejection. I honestly have never felt rejected. I have not gotten the job. But I tell you, 90% of the time, I work with them on something else.
A man inadequately sophisticated, or merely ignorant, or simply stupid, may believe himself past surprise, then be surprised to discover, for example, that Mr. Hurst already knows of my inclinations and finds them immaterial.
When you first tried out for Deadwood, you were actually trying out for a different role. Can you tell us about that experience?
They auditioned first on the West Coast, and I was supposed to audition for Sheriff Bullock, which Tim Oliphant ultimately played.
Yeah.
So I was getting ready for that. But before they got to New York, they'd cast that part. They're like, we found him. So I was like, oh shit, is there any other parts? And they're like, yeah, how about you come read for the town doc? And I was like, town doc? And I read the doc, you know, and I was looking at them with that sort of like, come on, say something. Tell me you got something else. And they were like, thank you, that was really good. And I was like, fuck, you know, and I started to leave, and then I was like, you know, look, I know I'm not what you might think of as the town doc, you know, but, and he was like, whoa, that's self-defeating. Would you read another part? And I was like, that's what I was hoping you'd say. I don't know why I had a sort of fit of, I don't know, confidence or something, but he gave me a call. He said, you want to come back tomorrow? And he said, or you can just take a moment. And I said, I'll take a minute. I can do this thing with my eye.
Yeah. And the character called for something with the eye, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to be like, I read it and it was like the ugliest man in the history of the world. And I was like, wow, fuck, you know, oh, sure, that's me, you know. And so I just found some way to make myself unappealing.
That's right.
The 9-high straight do the trick.
You know, you sometimes play characters with the dark side. How do you access that? How do you justify it? Where do you find that within you?
I guess Stella Adler's the closest I've ever found to what I do, what I feel like I do anyway, which is just sort of imagine myself as this character and then imagine myself as this character in this situation. And what's the first thing that happens? And the rest kind of tumbles on from there.
You know, on many shows, you've worked with amazing actors. And so Keith Carradine, Martha's dad, you end up killing him, Wild Bill. What is it like for you to sit across from maybe legendary actors?
Well, it was interesting. I was just thinking the other day about how I on his last day, how I waited around outside his trailer. And I had this book I was going to give him. And I'd written something. I knocked on the door and he opened it and he was like, hey, Garret. And I was like, oh, I had this speech, you know, I was like, hello, Mr. Carradine, what's this book? And I remember he's sort of leaning against the trailer and it's like his face kind of fell.
But was he disappointed that you were kind of putting him above?
I think
or
so.
different from you?
Yeah, I think he would have rather said, you know, you want to play catch?
Yeah. I want to talk about Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles,
yeah.
because you played a robot.
After my crack about robots.
I need a list of new students who've enrolled in the school district since the fall of 2007. Male, Caucasian, ages 15 to 18.
How do you find that robot for yourself so it's not a caricature?
Well, I loved the Terminator movies, first of all. I was like, but also it's kind of easy once you realize that, I mean, I wish I was more like, I was one of the old school robot kinds. He doesn't care if he fails. He doesn't get mad if he doesn't catch John Connor. He just keeps trying to catch John Connor.
You know, I like to talk about manifestation sometimes. I feel as though I've manifested a lot in my life. And it seems as though one of the things you always wanted to do was do some of Cormac McCarthy's work. And somehow it eventually led to No Country for Old Men.
A lab report from Austin on that boy by the highway.
What was a bullet?
There wasn't no bullet.
Wasn't no bullet.
Yes, sir. There wasn't none.
Well, Wendell, with all due respect, that don't make a lot of sense.
No, sir.
Can you tell us about that whole process, liking his books, leading to the
Well, I
Colorados?
have a writing degree. You know, I don't think I'm a great writer. I'm an okay writer. I hope you guys write, just because we need to make content for ourselves. And Cormac's writing is kind of a no-brainer. You know, it's I wanted to say those words.
You went on to Hand of God, 20 episodes of that, Mindy Project, 38. How did those come about?
These guys all know too, the streaming platform has changed everything for us. You know, Hand of God was a great gig. Maybe the most challenging role I've ever had physically, and the one I'm most proud of.
You have anything to say before I send your sorry ass back to prison?
I believe God has a plan for everyone. Me standing in front of you right now is part of his plan.
You were right about what you said. God chose me to mete out justice, but I can't do it alone. He wants you.
I can do that.
I miss that character a lot. But you shoot a season there, and they wait. They show the pilot. What do you want? I think we do want this one. You wait another year. Let's shoot it now. We shoot that season. We wait. You drop the first season 2.5 years after you shoot. So in that interim, they own you. You know, I'm like, well, I'm used to working a lot. You know, I'm used to my detriment, you know, journeymaning myself out and doing whatever comes my way. So that's how Mindy came along.
Well, that's the trouble with women like you. You confuse exploitation with empowerment. Are strip clubs empowering? No. Is Hooters restaurant empowering? I don't think so. For my 40th birthday, when I hired 2 Georgia State cheerleaders to wrestle in barbecue sauce, was that empowering? Most certainly was not.
So, but then you worked with Gregg again with Guestbook and Sprung. What was it like being a executive producer on Sprung?
I just wanted to do something I enjoyed with people I loved, and that was Gregg.
Yeah.
In that world. So I called Gregg and I said, we need to do something. He's like, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. But this is the kind of guy I want to be. And I had like, these are the things that I find appealing. And he went off and wrote Sprung.
What inspires you?
Well, I think authenticity is inspiring. You know, I think back on the things that really moved me, and it doesn't matter then what people look like. It doesn't matter what, but when people are vulnerable and authentic to me, when I see a performance like that, or see a performer, a musician, anything like that, I am envious of it, and I want to replicate that in my own life, and I take inspiration from that.
That's great. Well, what makes you laugh?
People falling down is good. That's always a winner. I don't know. I got a low sense of humor, so yeah. But a lot makes me. I like having fun. I don't think, if we're not having fun, there's not much point in doing this.
And lastly, what do you know for sure?
Oh no. I think what I know for sure is that I don't know. Do you get that answer a lot?
No, but I think that's true. You know, I think when I'm most
more and more.
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought I knew.
Yeah. Garret, I so admire you for your career. I appreciate when you told me to trust my instincts, and I think you're just such a great example for us in so many ways with your work. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for letting me come. You guys are great.
It was so great having Garret here with the class. I know the students learned a lot. I did as well. You know, I want everybody in my class, and those of you watching this, to be successful actors long term. I've been at it for 30 years, and I still believe the best is yet to come. And I want that for you. So week after week, I'll keep sharing lessons and interviews. So please hit like and subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll keep working toward it. Working toward who we want to be in this business and in this life. See you next week.